Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today's video has been highly requested, more so in a question form, because I do get this same question over and over again in my comment section on my live streams, and it is, who should I awaken, Captain America Infinity War or Void? Who should I use all my 6 stones, Captain America Infinity War or Void? Or who should I rank 5, Void or Cap? And the right answer there is both are fantastic options, and there is no wrong decision to make in between these two. However, I can speak about the differences about champions and who I prefer, and clearly what was my choice. So first we're going to take a look at Void. So as we all know, Void is an amazing champion, fantastic champion that can deal with a lot. He can basically prevent evade characters from evading, he can make your opponents not crit, but most importantly, the two things that we love Void the most for is the ability to deal with regeneration and power gain opponents, and we can completely reverse the regen and power gain, and that is what he's extremely effective for. Also, the fact that he can do a large amount of damage over time without really having a need to hit the opponent much, therefore you can kind of like play passively. What I'm trying to say is Void is extremely versatile character that will come in handy. He's extremely useful tool in the contest of champions, and time again you will essentially feel the need for a champion like Void, and yeah, and that's what he's there for. For me, I will be absolutely honest, I am not the biggest fan when it comes to enjoyment of the game with Void. However, he is extremely useful tool that I still rely to in pretty much every piece of content. There is going to be a fight or 2 or 3 that you will need this character for, or some subset of this character's abilities. And he's great. He's tanky, he has massive health pool, he can play in many different kind of ways. He's also incinerate immune, which is becoming more and more increasingly important. And there is not all that much what he can do, and also one of Void's upsides is the fact that he has very few bad matchups, and that makes him like a really great versatile character. However, a Void's kind of like kill speed is not the fastest. That's why, in my opinion, he really is not the kind of like your preferred go-to questing champ in majority of the situations, just because most of the fights with Void do take time. It takes time to ramp him up, to place the debuffs on opponent, to get that Fear of the Void active, to get that attack boost, and initially his like base damage is fairly underwhelming. Therefore, yeah, he's definitely kind of more suited for longer fights. Another thing that unfortunately is fairly annoying quite often with Void is the order he plays his debuffs is random. Therefore, if you need Petrify, let's say, the most in order to deal with the regen and power gain, you are extremely RNG dependent, because if you're lucky, it can be the first and second debuff you get. If you're unlucky, they might as well be fifth and sixth debuffs you get. Like we saw here, we got 3 other debuffs before we placed a Petrify on opponent, and we're able to actually start reversing the heal properly. So that is definitely a slight downside to Void, which I'm not a big fan of, because yeah, it's RNG, you can't control it, and in quite a few fights you do kind of rely on being able to, let's say, reverse the power gain fairly quickly, otherwise you will quickly find yourself in a tight spot. Another great thing for Void has going for is he has a couple of really cool synergies, and namely the coolest one is with Killmonger, and that one states every time you place a debuff, one of your Fear of Intimidating Presence debuffs, on your opponent, you regain 1% of your health. Now that interacts also with Recovery Mastery, so it's slightly more than that. And 1%, even though it might not sound much, it does provide extremely great sustainability for the character. As we're going to see here, we're fighting against an opponent in Act 6, Chapter 2, who has unavoidable, basically level 1, so we will be forced to take a lot of block damage. However, the Void's playstyle, the fact that we can just kind of like procrastinate in the game, and we don't have to actively attack opponent in order to deal damage to him, combined with the regen we get from this synergy every time we place a new Intimidating Presence debuff, we can see that we pretty much all the time maintain close to 100% health despite taking all the block damage from War Machine's level 1s, and that just kind of really greatly showcases that Void can be extremely sustainable character when it comes to questing and clearing harder content, and definitely be a potion saver, as well as the fact that you can lower opponents' crit chance. Therefore, even if you do slip up, there is a high chance you will not be taking as much damage as many other champions would, so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is Void is extremely versatile and useful champion that definitely can help any summoner. Now, another thing that I can say about Void though is largely whatever you want from Void. For instance, I get out of my rank 4 Void just fine. I have never felt a need to take this guy up to a rank 5. I have said quite a few times in past that only kind of time and reason I would consider taking this guy to rank 5 is if I need for Alliance War and I would need kind of like any and all kind of possible advantages I have from this guy. But the thing that Void does for me, he provides answers to difficult to defeat fights, and he does it at rank 4. He's one champion that I think fits really well in description, that you do not necessarily need him as a rank 5 for him to do great things for you, just like Archangel, for instance. That does not mean he's any less valuable than the champions you want to take to rank 5, but it does mean that he is definitely not my priority for a rank up. And now we're going to talk about the second kind of side of the coin. We're going to talk about Captain America Infinity War. As we saw there, we just did the same fight in 15 hits and also hardly taking any block damage. Now, Captain America Infinity War is vastly different champion from Void. However, they do cover quite a lot of the same matchups. They can both deal with heal. Void is much better with dealing with power gain nodes though, so definitely huge win for Void there when it comes to dealing with Hyperions and Spite and things like that. Even though Captain America Infinity War can quite easily outplay Spite due to the fact that he has no inherent buffs and his block is so damn good. Still, Void is definitely a better champion when it comes to dealing with power gain stuff. Healing stuff, quite often Cap can do it faster and can do it better, as we're going to showcase in this Diablo fight. Just because you are not reliant to RNG, you can utilize your heal reversal basically from first couple of seconds in the fight, and that is not RNG reliant. That is, however, reliant on your team, how many different classes of other champions you're bringing, and that makes Captain America Infinity War quite an interesting and unique character, because you can kind of fine-tune and adjust his abilities based on the team you bring, which also brings to a really important point in the game, that Captain America Infinity War is vastly more beneficial to larger rosters, because if you do not have fair solid options of every kind of champion in the class, every class of champions ranked up, quite often you will struggle to unlock true potential of Captain America Infinity War. Video, if your roster is fairly limited in the champions it has access to, then I would say that Void can potentially benefit you more, because if you do not have highly ranked champions of all the classes that Cap might need in a quest in order to access his debuffs, his debuff shrug off ability, so on and so forth, you will not get the best out of the character. So Void is better for smaller rosters. However, Captain America Infinity War also is a champion that does have incredibly powerful level 2 and does rely much more on his kind of like base damage output. Therefore, Captain America Infinity War is a champion that benefits more from a higher rank than Void does. And that is the second takeaway. If you have both champions awakened, let's say at high sig ability, and you're struggling to decide which one to rank, and if you have decently sized roster, I would definitely go with Captain America Infinity War, just because he kind of needs it more. Void is never going to be your go-to questing champion for average uncollected anyways, and the things that you want Void for when it comes to reversing heal, reversing regen, Void is perfectly capable of doing as a rank 4 champion. Now, Captain America Infinity War often relies much more on his ability to damage opponent and get some really good crits in, and you do want to have him ranked higher, basically as high as you can for that. So that is like the second answer to the question. Cap needs the rank 5 more. Also, Cap, in my opinion, has a bit of an upper hand when it comes to forming your teams and bringing your champions, because of the fact that if you have a high roster and if you have decently ranked up champions, then you are extremely flexible in what team you bring with the captain, even though you do want to pay attention to the classes you need, but it's not down to specific champions. Therefore, it is extremely easy to unlock Captain America full potential with a skill champion, cosmic science champion, tech champion, all the debuffs, and then you have great access to weakness debuffs, armor break debuffs, petrify, so on and so forth. Also with skill champion, you can shrug off any and all debuffs from you so long as you have kinetic charges, which are extremely easy to gain, which I'm demonstrating in these two fights against Abomination and Morningstar. I'm fighting Morningstar, yet I haven't had a single bleed placed on me, just because Captain America can shrug all of them off with 100% accuracy if you have him at max sig. Which pretty much brings us to the third point. Void benefits from high signature ability. Captain America Infinity War basically demands max signature ability in order to be 100% reliable. Because I doubt I would enjoy playing my Cap nearly as much if I thought there is a chance his abilities might not trigger. Unfortunately, in order to have a guaranteed access to all of your abilities on every single parry, you do need max signature ability. With Void, high sig, yes, definitely beneficial. Max sig might not be necessarily an absolute must. I think my Void is 660 something. I do not feel any need to put in more 6 stones into my Void. However, I would and do and did feel a need to put the 6 stones in my Cap to get him to max sig. And lastly, one kind of like main argument probably that swayed me to rank Cap Infinity War over Void was suicide friendliness. Unfortunately, no matter how you try, and this is basically a perfect setup for Void to be able to somewhat run suicides, and that is with Nick Fury and Gold Bull synergy and Killmonger, and we get some regen back there. Void still relies on throwing his level 1s, and that is the A and B and C of playing Void kind of thing. You basically want to keep throwing your level 1s against every single opponent, which I'm not the biggest fan of the playstyle, but that is hardly the issue here. The issue is the fact that Void has no immunities. He relies on spamming his special 1 that makes him extremely unfriendly to suicide masteries for like majority of the time. Now, Cap has also no immunities, but the difference is he fights differently. He fights with a very little amount of hits, largely spamming your heavy attacks. He has perfect block chances, like basically his parry never takes damage, and that means he can retain more health that way. And typically you finish all your fights with a single level 2 or 2 level 2, so you don't worry about recoil nowhere near as much as you do when it comes to using Void. And yeah, that is another kind of like important point. If you're a suicide player, then Captain America Infinity War is definitely your guy over Void. However, on the Void's kind of like defense, as I mentioned before, Void is and will never be my champion for like generic questing. And when I do need Void for a fight or 2 fights in the quest, which is typically the case, Void is perfectly capable of handling those fights with suicide masteries, just with losing some health. That does not mean he can't play with suicide masteries at all. When you need him, you can still bring him with suicides for a fight or 2, and you're gonna be good. He's just not going to be your kind of like main path clearer, which in my opinion he shouldn't be regardless. Be more useful to you if you have a limited roster. If you do not have too many champions ranked, I do think that it is wiser to invest in your Void before you look at your Cap. And second of all, I do think that Captain America needs the rank 5 more than Void does, just because Void is capable of kind of like capitalizing on his strengths at a low rank level, because what's important is his abilities, not how hard he can strike, and his base health pool is huge compared to an average champion. Therefore, he's not fragile, and he will still be able to reverse that regen, to reverse that power gain, and that is what you need. You do not need extra 500 or 1000 hit points from a punch. You do need to maintain and take control of the fight, and Void will do that quite often, as we can see in a lot of videos on my channel, even as a 4-star champion when it comes to like variant and stuff like that. So no, Void does not necessarily demand the rank 5, unless I would say you reliably want to use him in Alliance War, because there you want to be as safe as possible. Captain America Infinity War needs the rank 5 much more. Also, I do think that Void needs a high sig level, Cap needs max signature level in order to be dependent and reliable and effective. fourth point is that I do believe you will get out more from your cap than void if you have a large roster that have plenty of options to rank, just because cap offers you a lot of versatility when it comes to selecting your team and unlocking his abilities. And the last point is cap is slightly better with Suicide Masteries than void is. However, that's not a deal breaker when it comes to using void, because void typically should be used for targeted matchups, not your generic line clearing. Leave that for Omega Red, leave that for Corvus Ghost, whatever. Void is a specialist, so treat him like one. Cap can be much more user-friendly in an average fight as well than void. But yeah, guys, those are more or less my thoughts on who you should rank or who you should invest your signature stones on. Basically, there is no wrong answer. Both of the champions are fantastic, and if you do invest in them, you will love them. And also, it is a fairly complex question, which definitely depends on what kind of account you have, what kind of roster you have, what mastery setups you like to run, so on and so forth. So hopefully this video provided you with some answers and some fair mindset, which you should be kind of like looking at when deciding in between these two champions. And yeah, I hope you guys found it useful. If you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya!